How were the sites at Sellerstown and Lyrath discovered?
Well, a road is being built from Kilkenny to Waterford, and before the road building begins, archaeologists dig a long trench down the centre of the road with branches off it from the beginning to the end using a machine. And it was during this phase of what's called archaeological testing that the Lyrath and Sellerstown sites were discovered.
Who brought the archaeologists in to work on these sites?
The laws of planning in Ireland mean that if a big building project, like a road, is being constructed, the National Roads Authority would come in and make sure that all the archaeology identified is fully excavated and recorded by archaeologists.
How did they remove the crop and that we can see in the background?
Well, before we get on site with our shovels and our hand digging tools, a machine comes in and takes away any crop or topsoil to reveal the archaeology for us.
What are the white posts?
The white posts are electric fencing posts, but we're using them to hold a string to allow us to draw a profile or a section through this medieval ditch that we are recording.
What are the stones?
The stones are the remains of a medieval wall or a gateway through a ditch into a medieval house. So obviously the wall has fallen down and all that is left is this pile of stones.
What might the ring ditch at Lyrath be?
The ring ditch is probably a Bronze Age burial monument that could date as far back as 2500 BC, so 4,500 years old. It would originally have had a small mound in the centre of the circle that you can see there, and that mound would have been made of the soil that was dug out of the circle. The mound, because it's so long ago, has now been ploughed out and flattened down by the farmers in the area.
How did the archaeologists know that it might be there?
Well, they didn't really know, but because nothing remained above ground to tell you about it, but the siting of the burial monuments would be very typical for them. It's on a gravel ridge. So when the testing was going on, the trenches going through, archaeologists would have been paying special attention for this type of archaeology.
What are the buckets used for?
Well, the buckets are just basic tools that we use every day. They would be used to remove soil from archaeological features such as the ring ditch and to carry it away from the site. The gully, when we found it, was filled with a darker soil, and so we removed this to get back to what it would have originally looked like.
Why did the ring ditch have to be cleaned for the photo?
The excavation was carried out in January when the weather was miserable and it rained a lot. So by the time we had finished excavating the ring ditch, there was puddles and footprints all over it. So it needed to be cleaned so we could get a good record photo. The photo it's very important to get good photographs when we excavate these archaeological sites, because they need to be put into a report for other people who can read about it later on. Because unfortunately, when we finish excavating these sites, the road will then be built over them and they won't exist anymore. So it's very important.
How do you keep record of what's on the site?
Every layer of soil that we discover on a site is given a unique number, and all the pieces of pottery or metal that we find are given that number also. We dig every layer of soil by hand to make sure we don't miss anything. And every soil layer or interesting find is photographed and planned on site.
What are the wheelbarrows for?
The wheelbarrows are, again, everyday tools like the buckets. And in this excavation, because it's medieval soils, there's an awful lot more soil to remove. So the easiest way of getting that soil out of that big hole that you see there, all dug by hand, was to use a wheelbarrow.
What happens when it rains?
Well, it depends on how heavy the rain is. If it's just drizzling, we would work on through it. But if it's heavy rain or flooding, it's too dangerous, obviously, to be wheel carrying wheelbarrows or heavy buckets of soil because we could injure ourselves. Equally, it damages the archaeology because you can't see what you're doing. So we usually would run for the nearest cabin and take shelter. If it's not too near the beginning of the site, there'll usually be some paperwork to catch up on as well. So we're able to occupy ourselves that way.
Why do archaeologists use a trowel and tray?
The trowel is used for small excavations, generally, or to dig up small finds and then to clean soils properly. The tray is for putting finds in. So in this type of excavation, medieval excavation, it's almost always used because of the amount of pottery that would be discovered. And basically, as we dig a layer, we would put the finds from it into a tray, and then that tray will be taken off and the finds put in a bag with a number and then sent off to a specialist to analyse it further.
What sort of things did the archaeologists find out about the town wall and ditch?
They found out lots of things. The first thing they found out was how old the tower and walls were. They're about 800 years old. They found out that they were built by Norman conquerors, and they were built to keep the Irish out because it was a settlement at the time. The first town walls were built of earth, and they had a timber fence on the top rather than actually being stone walls. The stone walls that we see the remains of today were built 50 years after that to replace the wooden fences. The tower was built at that stage as well. And the tower had a sloping wall coming out from the base of it down into the ditch to prevent the enemies and the attackers digging in underneath it to get in and capture the city. The tower was also, or the corner of town walls was also the place where the Normans would have displayed the severed heads of their enemies on pikes.
What are the little brushes for?
The little brushes are used to keep the area clean. In this picture, we're taking dating samples, so it's very important that they're not contaminated by modern rubbish. And because this kiln is located right on the edge of the Dublin Road, beneath the double yellow lines, opposite Lawler's pub there, a lot of dust and dirt and from the traffic that was going past would be coming in. So it was very important just to keep the area very clean.
What is the plastic container that looks like a lunchbox for?
Well, the container, it is a lunchbox, but we're just using it to hold water to mix plaster of Paris that you probably used for making models and sculptures in school. We need to make a flat platform on the pieces of soil that we're extracting for dating, so that we can mark the direction of north on it. And so when that piece of soil arrives in the laboratory, the people who are analysing it will know where north was when we were digging it.